In this video, we're going to talk about how governments and cities and emergency organizations, police, fire, can use digital signage in emergency situations. So this is how to set up talking about setting up emergency digital signage. So when disaster strikes, it's critical that you keep people informed. And there's a lot of methods for doing this. There's email, there's text messages, there's radio broadcasts, there's TV broadcasts. And emergency digital signage gives you another channel for this. But digital signage is becoming so widespread, it's already in many public and retail spaces. So what we want to talk about here is the potential for using this existing digital signage that's already there during emergencies. Now, the great news is you can easily change your messages and tailor them to the emergency. You can have different messages if it's an earthquake or if it's a hurricane or if it's a fire or a flood. So it's much simpler than with traditional signage where you have to print something different for each emergency. And you know, our eyes are automatically drawn to these TV screens and monitors wherever we go by. So if there's an emergency you need to make people aware of, they're going to look. We can't not look at a monitor screen that's up. So I want to talk about two ways to do this, like a two-prong approach to getting started. One is to use the already city or government-owned signage that might be already available in your area. And another approach is to figure out how can we use the commercial signs in an emergency situation. So the city and government-owned signage, already authorities control a lot of digital signage in public facilities like arenas and recreation centers, city halls, places like that. So you'd want to have a system to pull that all together so that you can quickly authorize and create messages that would go out in an emergency situation that would get out quickly. You might want to have additional digital signage as well in places not already covered and get a system, a plan in place to get more signage in those needed areas. For the commercial signs that are already up in shopping malls, retail spaces, publicly in the outsides of buildings, then there's a huge benefit if you can use these as well. The drawback is, of course, they're not controlled by the government or even in most cases by a single source. So you need to work with local businesses to come up with an emergency message distribution network plan that local businesses can use to pass these messages on. So you might want to have an email list that would automatically go out to these local business owners or managers in an emergency saying, please activate this system, perhaps a telephone calling tree with recorded messages or text. So you need a system to be able to reach that, and their agreement, of course, that they'll do this in an emergency. It helps as well to have an emergency template, perhaps red, yellow background, something that's really going to jump and stand out. And you can have set slides for things like fire, flood, if the water quality is bad, needs to be boiled, or spread of disease. So you can have some very general things that would be done, say in the case of a fire, and have a series of slides very generally for a flood. And then of course you can quickly add to those prepared slides very quickly in an emergency situation. You also want to handle what happens if you lose an internet connection, because of course a disaster such as an earthquake could cause that. So you want to have some general messages that will run if the internet connection is lost. So with the systems we suggest, it will actually continue running the last message you sent out. But you might want some general ones as well, such as staying calm, boiling water, food instructions, a list of where to go for emergency shelter, the frequency for emergency radio stations in the areas, and suggested signals to alert first responders if your home has people in distress. For example, in a flood situation, first responders may not know which houses have people in them and which don't. So if you have a system in place, such as a flag out a window or something, or fly something white as an example, then that would be a way that people would know that they need to come here. So some suggested tools for this, we recommend PowerPoint to be able to create your emergency slides, because it's very easy to work with, really easy to add graphics to, really easy to update. And a tool we have is called DataPoint, allows you to connect that digital signage created in PowerPoint to your data feed. So if you have an emergency news that's coming out all the time, you can actually set up a slide to automatically carry that news. And we also recommend iPoint, which is our tool that you manage your entire digital signage network from a single point. And you can download all these at PresentationPoint.com. And please contact us for help setting up your emergency digital signage system, or let us know what you're doing. We'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much for listening, and visit us at PresentationPoint.com.